Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Hi. So today for our class, I'm gonna do a little bit of history class on an area not too far from us, an area that we visit quite a bit. Um, I went somewhere the other day with one of the people in my group. We went to a museum in Martinez, and I found something out that I didn't know. I should have known, but I didn't. But there's a baseball great, um, like one of the greatest of all time. Played for the New York Yankees. Married Marilyn Monroe for a little while. Um, and, you know, came from Martinez. I mean, his family came to Martinez, and that's where he lived. But he lived in Martinez for a while. But this is the story of Joe DiMaggio, his time in Martinez, which wasn't very long, but why he left Martinez and how he became a baseball great. So, again, he's one of the greatest baseball players of all time. This is like way back when. This is when Babe Ruth was playing, Shoeless Joe Jackson. But really great players at a really interesting time where baseball was the national pastime, where that's what everybody played. Basketball wasn't really around, football wasn't that established, but baseball, for at least in terms of sports in America, in the United States, has always been the big one throughout time. I mean, I personally think basketball is bigger, and even football is bigger than baseball is now. But actually, going to a game, I love going to baseball games. Watching it on TV, I couldn't really do that. I could watch basketball all the time, but not so much baseball. But at the same time, it's an amazing game, and it's our national pastime. And so, but this is how Joe DiMaggio, one of the greats of all time, who lived in Martinez, moved on to become a New York Yankee. So the Martinez can call him Martinez his home. Yeah, it's more of a San Francisco kid, but we'll find out why in just a bit. So I printed this thing up. It was from the Martinez News Gazette, called "Why Joe Left Town." Right there. Why did Joe leave town? Okay, so before he turned 3 years old, Joe DiMaggio and his family had left Martinez for good. So he didn't live there very long, but that's where he was born. Joe often returned to the town of his birth after he retired from baseball, but San Francisco got to call itself Joe's hometown because he left there when he was 3. And that's where Joe and his brothers Vincent and Dominic learned the ropes of professional baseball. Was up there in San Fran. If they'd remained in Martinez, fishing knots would have been the only ropes the DiMaggio boys would have known. So, because Martinez was a huge, not as big a fishing town now. There's still some good fishing out there for sure. But that was the main hub of commerce there was fishing. So Papa didn't like his sons wasting time playing ball, but few people realized the real reason the DiMaggios had to leave Martinez in the first place. So their dad was a fisher person. I guess since he's a man, fisherman, but women fish too, so I say fisher person. But no, just to be gender inclusive. So his dad didn't really want them playing baseball. Thought it was a waste of time. How wrong was that guy? Okay, so their move was the result of an odd accident involving a passing train and Joe's sister, Frances DiMaggio, who was 7 at the time. So his older sister. So, quick tidbit. So it said, although his fathers and brothers were fishermen, Joe DiMaggio could only fake it. So there's a picture here. I don't know. You're not going to be able to see it very well. But Joe's up there off to the right. But he's just posing in the picture. He has no idea what he's doing. The rest of them knew how to fish. Joe was a ball player. Okay, so back to the story. Sorry, little sideline. The DiMaggios, father Giuseppe and mother Rosalie, along with their 9 children, big family, bigger than mine by 1, Lived in a small house at the base of Island Hill at the foot of Granger's Wharf on Foster Street, near where Barrelessa, we've been on that street many times, crosses the railroad tracks. The house no longer remains, but there is but it's marked by a historic placard that is still there. So, like other Sicilian American children in the neighborhood at the time, the DiMaggios were accustomed to playing on and around the railroad tracks that ran less than a block from their house. And especially back then, trains were big. Cars weren't that big, but trains were a big way of traveling, getting things to one place and from one place to another. So one day, young Frances, his older sister, was playing there when she was hit in the eye by a sudden piece of hot charcoal passing from a steam locomotive. So right in the eye. That's gotta hurt. Ouch. Yeah, that's why you wear goggles if you're gonna play on the railroad tracks. I don't know, or just don't play on them. But I guess that was the fun thing at the time. So the damage to her eye was so severe that inexperienced local doctor Edward Merrithew, MD, medical doctor, could do little more than treat her with bandages in Martinez. So basically, he would probably clean the eye and then wrap it back up, but the ember probably got pretty deep into her eye. So Merrithew was known as Il Dottore del Ditchu, or the Doctor of the Ditch, which referred to Alhambra Creek, we've been there, where no other doctor in town would venture. So really, this Merrithew guy was a nice guy. He just was kind of inexperienced with certain things. But really nice to be the only doctor that would actually travel through that area to help people out. So Rosalie, the mom, had to take her child to San Francisco for proper ocular health care. Ocular just means the eye. Now, bridges to the city would not be built for another 2 decades. So the Golden Gate wasn't there. None of the bridges, so even the Bay Bridge, nothing. The Richmond Bridge, nothing was there. So Frances and her mother had to ferry to the city. That was not an easy commute in 1917. So that's, wow, more than 100 years ago. Yeah, a lot more. That's 104 years ago. So after a while, those Trans-Bay trips became so burdensome that Rosalie convinced her husband to move the family to North Beach, where he and his sons could still maintain their fishing boats in Fisherman's Wharf from their apartment on Taylor Street. So they were going to and from San Francisco, basically, to take care of Frances's eye by ferry. And finally, Rosalie's like, we can't do this. This is a crazy trip to take as many times as they had to per week. Hopefully it wasn't daily, but they finally said, no, we can't do this anymore. And so they decided just to move to San Francisco. So little did these parents realize how much the national pastime would affect their younger sons once they started playing hardball in the Field of Dreams on San Francisco streets. So that's how Joe moved from Martinez to San Francisco. So though it was very unfortunate for Frances, I'm sure overall it was very positive for their family because Joe DiMaggio became, I forget what his nickname is, but actually let me look it up real fast. I'm going to pause this and I'll be right back. Okay, well, it wasn't what I thought it was, but he did have 2 nicknames. One was Joltin' Joe, which I don't know why they called him that. It doesn't say. Or the Yankee Clipper. And that's just probably from all the hits that he got. But, like I said, it's probably unfortunate for Frances, but overall very good for the family because he did become one of the greatest ball players of all time. And so they probably had money and things like that. Now, little side note, more history about Martinez and baseball, and then into music. So Martinez has a really interesting history. And it's not a very big town. When the person I went with, they are in my group, so, if they want to fess up who it is, they can. But they basically said, oh, no, it's 2 people, sorry, in my group. But basically what they said was that, pretty much everybody in Martinez goes to all the football games and things like that. the town, and it only has one high school. So it's a really tight knit town, but it has a really rich history. It's really a cool town. And if you ever get a chance to go to that museum, I would suggest checking it out. Okay, so you gotta believe this is the next baseball story to come out of Martinez. So another big leaguer, New York Met reliever Tug McGraw, also grew up in Martinez. But Tug's legacy doesn't hold the water that the Yankee Clipper held. Yankee Clipper, yeah, there it is. For one thing, McGraw was born in 1944, so much later than DiMaggio's day, and belonged to a generation of ball players far removed from the heyday of DiMaggio, Ruth, Shoeless Joe Jackson, um, Lou Gehrig. There were all sorts. McGraw's dad was known as Big Mac, so his mother knew their son needed a nickname, so she decided to call him Tug because of his particularly aggressive way of feeding when he was a baby on his mom. I'm not gonna say the word, and if you don't know what I mean, look up the story. Again, it's called "Why Joe Left Town" in the Martinez News Gazette. Okay, so the McGraws left Martinez before Tug entered high school, so he never got a chance to play for the Alhambra High Bulldogs. McGraw is most remembered for minting the phrase, "You gotta believe," which became the rallying cry for those once hapless Mets as he became the National League's top closer in the early 1970s. Tug's son is country music superstar and actor Tim McGraw. So, there you go. Goes from baseball to music. All coming out of Martinez in some way. So Tug's catchphrase might be something Martinez Clippers want to try as their rallying cry. At least they could claim that their expression has somewhat a local pedigree. So that is some history of Martinez outside of very famous history. So like I said, DiMaggio's, the McGraws, they came right out of Martinez. We're all here in Richmond, which is awesome. So go do whatever you want with your life. You have no idea what you can accomplish before you get out there and do it. So I hope you all get out there. Have a good one, and I'll talk to you all very soon, hopefully. All right. Ciao for now.